everyone. I'm so excited to do this panel to celebrate at the end of 2021, basically, some of these fantastic YA contemporary debuts of 2021. This year was a doozy, as was last year, the continued Panini Fest. I'm really excited to be doing this panel. This has been one of my most anticipated ideas, so I'm glad that it's come to fruition. Just a basic housekeeping rule. We don't tolerate harassment of any kind. And if you are engaging in harassment, we will block you. And that's kind of it. Just to do some introductions, my name is Lily, and I am the moderator for this panel. And I'm a book blogger, and I'm kind of just all over the internet at the moment. And that's all anyone would like to know about me. So if anyone, now we'll do the rest of the authors will introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with some questions. At the end, we'll also do questions. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them whenever through the chat, but also specifically at the end of the chat. And at the time that we're doing audience Q&As, I'll also drop the giveaway link. So that's all the basic housekeeping. And now we'll go on to introductions.
Hi everyone, I am Gabriela Martins. My pronouns are she, her, and I wrote this book, Like a Love Song. It's a romantic comedy. That's my debut. I'm a Brazilian author, so I like to write about Brazilian characters, and this one is about a Brazilian pop star.
Hi everybody, I'm Meredith Ireland. I am the author of The Jasmine Project, which is also a YA rom-com. It's about a girl whose family sets her up in a bachelorette situation, and the only twist is that she doesn't know about it. So hilarity and hijinks ensue. I'm also the author of the forthcoming Everyone Hates Kelsey Miller, but also by Simon Schuster, and Adoptee Anthology in 2023, which is with HarperCollins.
Hi, I'm Bethany Mangle. I am the author of Prepped, which is about a girl who grows up in a community of doomsday preppers and then starts to accidentally fall for the boy in the bunker next door. So that sort of just has, a lot of my personal favorite things that I found that I love to see in YA contempt. And I'm also the author of the forthcoming All the Right Reasons, which is kind of it takes place on a dating show, and it's just about a girl who is, trying to navigate reality TV while finding her mom, or helping her mom find the perfect match.
Hi, I'm Emma Kress. I also use she, her pronouns, and I am the author of Dangerous Play, which is about a girl who is the captain of a girls' field hockey team. And when she's sexually assaulted, her ride or die team turn into vigilantes, but it just might cost them everything. Doof, 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 doof. I like saying the doof, doof, doof at the end. Just makes it more oomphy.
Great. I think it goes without saying, but I've obviously read all of them and I love them so much, which is why this has happened. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things, and mainly also about being a debut this year. One of the first questions that I had, which may sound like a simple question, but may, be more intense, is how would you describe your debut process or journey in 1 word or even 3 words? If 1 word is too hard.
New and challenging.
Hard and long.
Through? There we go. Yeah, fumbling.
Yeah, all of the above. And I, joyful learning explosion, I would also add.
I like the explosion part. It's very dun dun dun.
Yeah, I cannot even imagine also the reality or the sort of perception shift that has to happen, versus this year versus basically any other year. I'm not sure. I can't read as fast the questions that I wrote. So I don't know if that is one of the questions that I was thinking about before, but that's a perfect segue, I think, into this exact thing, right? So can you talk a little bit about kind of debuting this year and specifically the perception or, adjustment period or process for debuting in this current climate?
So I think I entirely lost my mind a few months early. So when I actually debuted, I wasn't as running around like a chicken without a head. I very much obsessed. My book was sold in August 2019. And then from August 2019 to December 2019, I was consumed by expectations and just hoping my book would do well and comparing everything that my book had or didn't have, most specifically didn't have, to what other authors were getting, like even Goodreads numbers of ads, and it didn't even have a cover yet. So my book barely existed and I was already losing my mind. And then my friends hosted an intervention. And I'm not joking about this. There was an intervention in which they were like, Gabby, if you keep this going this way, not only you're gonna have a horrible debut year, but we are afraid also like you're just not gonna write again because you're taking this too hard. So I listened to them and I blocked Goodreads, and I think ever since I may have read like 1 or 2 reviews. I genuinely have not read anything since, and that was really good. I think I watched a talk by Nick Stone on Instagram where she was like, just accept success is random, and there's nothing that there's not much that you can do other than write the book, because who determines whether your book will sell or not is your publisher. So I kind of just accepted that, and that was the healthiest shift for me. And as for the pandemic, I think I was not as impacted as USian authors because I am based in Brazil. So I wasn't going to go to bookshops or library events or, any of this. So I was actually very glad to be invited for things that perhaps otherwise I wouldn't have been. But there's still the burnout and the stress of these trying times.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything Gabby said. My book came out in early September, on September 7th. And so when we were thinking about events, it was around May, which was the whole, we're through this all and everything's gonna go back to being in person. So like plan your trip to Miami, plan your trip to Nashville. And then everything like slowly started to fall apart as we went back to virtual. I think had virtual always been the plan, that would have, if I had debuted at a different time, really any time other than like September, it wouldn't have been like oh man, like kind of a letdown that it wasn't a bit. Like the accessibility of going virtual has been great, but the Zoom burnout, the Instagram live burnout, I think in retrospect, I probably would have just done, I don't know, probably 2 virtual events and hyped them up a lot rather than having done like half a dozen and kind of gotten like exhausted myself. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
For me, I think it all started too because Prepped came out in February and everything was very uncertain then, including like in my personal life and trying to juggle kind of the way the pandemic affected everything else. So on top of everyone saying, did you write a book about doomsday preppers because the world was ending? And I went, no, that's not really the timeline of publishing, but I will laugh about it now because that's the only thing I can do. I also burned out, so that seems to be a really common theme. And one of the hardest things for me was that I couldn't turn to any more experienced authors and say like, hey, is there a way that you can help me? Is there any advice that you have? What did you wish, you had done differently? Because it was we were going to have a vastly different experience no matter what. And that's something that I've tried to bear in mind as I have friends, who are coming out with their debuts is, I feel like we now are in a way kind of a model because we were the first ones to have to do it of, what did I learn, especially being an introverted person who's bad with technology. So get on a Zoom event to me is like, what do I do? If I could do it, I'm so confident that, everyone will be able to, flex around what we have to do here, even if it isn't the best, even if it isn't the most accessible arrangement or things like that. But that was like my personal biggest hurdle going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything everybody said. I think the whole world has been in a state of mourning since the pandemic began, and we're mourning huge things like lives lost and horrific events that are exposing and enforcing the deep systemic inequities in our world, right? So there's like that level. And then we're also mourning these like small everyday things and then everything in between, because our whole lives have just been shifted. So, for me, I'm in my late 40s and I've been dreaming what my debut would look like since I was 10. That's a long time of fantasies. Like there's like real, tracks built in my fantasy brain of how this was going to look. And, of course it was all not like none of that was possible. And I think what really helped me was like naming it as mourning, and really letting myself go there. And I actually wrote my 10-year-old self a letter and like kind of just sort of tried to hold her close as I would one of my children, and just allowed myself to feel all the loss that I was feeling. And the second I did that, it just allowed the grief to kind of move on through, and it left space for joy and gratitude and what I wanted this experience to feel like, right? Even though it looked different, even though it was rewritten and revised in a big way, it could become joyful. And it is like, this is like, right, like this is a huge milestone that we got to do, and it's hugely lucky, even in the midst of all the hard. So I guess my big thing was like allowing myself to feel all the feels.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue also to the next question that I had about advice, and specifically what you and both Bethany were saying, right? This idea not only of advice that you wish you could have given yourself before the debut process, but also what's the most kind of helpful advice you were given, and also this idea perhaps that, as Bethany was saying, this experience is so unlike other people's experience, and that not the same advice that one might have gotten a couple of years ago or years in the future may not apply in the same way. But was there any advice that you think that you wish you could have gotten, and was there any advice that you did get that you found that was helpful?
I was actually very lucky that many of my friends debuted either a few months before me or a year before me, already during the pandemic. So my biggest advice is find friends who will get their books published before you, so you can learn them. No, but one thing that really helped shift my perspective was, and I wish I could have taken it to heart in a way that I don't know if I possibly could have, but now I've learned my lesson for book 2, is that there's not much I can do to move the needle on sales. Any of us, okay? It doesn't matter if you have 500 followers on Twitter or 50,000. I promise you, you're not the one selling your book. The things that really make a difference are either spontaneous, so that's word of mouth, you cannot possibly predict that, and your publisher. They're the ones who have the millions who can invest in things that will really sell your book. So I think that I really burned out on trying to bridge the wave to every possible reader, and I simply do not have that power, and none of us do. So letting go of that has allowed me to also focus on things that are not writing, and that has also made my, okay, not my debut experience, but like the afterwards, because I debuted in August, in early August, and then it took me a bit to really let go of, you know, checking my sales. I am from Penguin Random House, so we have our author portal where you can see your sales every week, and it took me a moment to let go of that and understand that I do not have much power on that. So it's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to keep writing books. And also my 2021 book, Hours, they will always exist. So it's okay, you know, next year, 10 years in the future, our books will still exist. So we don't have to necessarily rush. You know what I mean? Just this shift in perspective. I wish I could have listened to my friends, taken it more to heart, but I hope I can take that for book 2.
So don't compare is a really good lesson to learn, because you will have publishers who put $1 million into an author and get them on Good Morning America and give them amazing influencer boxes. And you will become a salt mine if you sit there and be like, why didn't I get that? It's not a good way to be. I think maybe Dahlia said, to make a list of everything you've accomplished so far. And that was super, super helpful, just because you see like, oh my God, I sold rights in another country. I got a starred review. I, you know, was selected for JLG. And these are all amazing things that I don't know that a year ago I would have even predicted that I could have gotten. Versus thinking about what you don't have. So that would be my biggest suggestion.
I think my advice ties in a little bit. So Meredith, I think it was your tweet where it was like, we're all just one stuck vending machine item away from just totally having a breakdown. So my biggest advice is be authentic. So as I was going into my debut launch, I remember especially like being someone who, you know, has a disability and is chronically ill. I remember like kind of just dragging myself to my computer and trying to fix my hair and get the right lighting, even though I didn't want to do this thing, and smiling and pretending. And then I realized, like, you know what, I'm so burned out. And finally, I had someone kind of say, you know, actually my favorite tweets from you, or my favorite content from you, is kind of when you like snap a little bit and you're like, listen, this is just what you're going to get. And you know what? I did my last unboxing in my pajamas. And I was like, my hair wasn't done. I was a mess. And I was just like, this is what a pandemic debut looks like. Here's your unboxing. Look, there's some books. I did it. Hooray. And it was a little bit like, to be funny, it was a little bit sarcastic, but it was also very much how I felt. Like, I'm so proud of this moment. I just can't fake it. And I feel like that would not be authentic, to have to put on a performance instead of just being myself. And honestly, a lot of me writing is me sitting here with my hair undone in my pajamas. So that was just for me a total shift. And now if you look at my like online presence, it's just 24/7 chaos. Like it's very kind of filtered. And that has been so freeing to me, not just the getting away from the expectation that I have to be social media perfect all the time.
Yeah. So again, this is the hard thing about going last. I just want to be like what everybody else said. so I'm going to say it just slightly differently, which is that this is something I talk about a lot. So people who follow me, this is going to be old news, but I like thinking about it as staying in my boat. I think a lot about my boat. I recommend that every human get themselves a boat. And inside my boat are the things I can control, right? So honing my writing craft, how much time I dedicate to my writing, how vulnerable I am on the page, getting words on the page, teaching my kids to clap when I finish a draft. Literally everything else is outside of my control. Book deals, reviews, lists, other people's opinions, whether anybody buys, whether my kids actually clap. Like all of that is outside my boat, right? And I just think it's so helpful to train your focus inside your boat. And I think in a lot of things, but I think particularly publishing, there are just a lot of shiny somethings, lots of ego catnip, lots of opportunities to, like, I have this one friend who calls it, this is what Meredith was getting at, but I have one friend who calls it compare and despair, which I just love. And I think retraining our focus to be inside our boat, for me, it's has to be a habit, like a constant intentional act. It's not something that just is. It's that when I find myself slipping outside my boat, which frankly a lot of marketing is, like, it's right, it's the lie that we can control the things outside our boat. And so you have to sort of again reframe it all so that whatever it is that you're doing, it's inside your boat. And because whenever I dip outside my boat, I feel oogie. That's my writerly word for how I feel when I'm outside my boat. So so figuring out how to be trained inside your boat. That's my big advice.
Yeah, I think that all of those things, I think the beauty of all of the things that everyone is saying also is that they're so applicable to like a variety of different experiences, specifically also within the last couple of years. One thing that I was thinking about specifically with our, with our online conversation now and with debuting as well, if you all, this is completely spontaneous. This is something I was thinking about actually before this, and I was thinking about all these different communities that are forming, online spaces and sort of hybrid spaces and debut spaces, all of these different spaces that are popping up. And I wanted to know if you all had any experiences or advice or, just things that you wanted to say specifically about the communities that are popping up, and also finding a community, like finding, whether that be author friends or finding, I don't know, maybe just friends in general. I don't know. But like, finding spaces and finding communities that you can sort of thrive and sort of grow in.
I think making friends as an adult is really difficult, not because we stop being likable or interesting, but because we are very uncomfortable with getting out of our comfort zone. And like making friends is all about being comfortable with discomfort, accepting that the person or people you're talking to, they're not going to be the same as you. They're not going to have the same experiences as you. And I think the challenge is being respectful while also not feeling that you have to become them 2.0. And I think that where the specifically Twitter clique mentality comes at play in a very dangerous way is when people become copies of each other. And that can feel very alienating for other people. Well, also, I don't really think that's a community, because I can only imagine you would be afraid of being your true self. So I think that, hi Tashi, welcome.
Oh, sorry about that. My
That's
Wi-Fi was being wild. Continue, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So I think that it's important to find your people, but also accept that your people are not going to be copies of you. They're going to have differences, and you have to accept that they're different people. You don't have to become them as well to, be to have a good relationship, a good friendship. Finding your people is always hard. Just be insistent, be persistent. Some of my friends say that I have attacked them with friendship until they gave in. And I think that's about right, because I'm more of an extrovert. So it's easy for me to be like, hi, how are you? Hi. So, allow yourself to open up and just befriend people. It's hard as an adult, but we can do it. Yes.
So I get asked a couple times why my Twitter is popular. And to be honest with you, I have no idea. I do know that there was a change, though, when I just said, I'm going to do this to amuse me. And if other people are amused too, well, then that's great. And I think that, but that circles back to just being authentic, being who you are. And, you're an adult. Like, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to be your cup of tea. But if you are authentic to who you are, and you're not trying to, as Gabby said, you're not trying to be somebody else, you're just you will find people. I actually, sadly, or I don't know, maybe good. I think all of my writer friends came from Twitter. Or some variation of, a group that I wound up joining because I was on Twitter. Like, the Slack that I'm in now originated in Twitter. It's just kind of a weird thing how the writer community can come together in good ways sometimes. So.
Wait, am I going now? Okay, so I will go next. So no, I agree with that and about being authentic. And I have some very strange writing groups like that started as jokes and ended up being just wonderful. Like, for example, I made a joke with another writer friend who's named Bethany. I said, look, there's so many Bethanies on our thread. We should make a little group. And we now have like 14 of us. And we're all named Bethany. We all write different groups. If there's a writer and they're named Bethany, there's a strong possibility that they're in my writing group. But we're across all genres. It's such an interesting group because it's not like we connected over we're all middle grade writers or young adult writers, or we all write in this genre, or we have this shared thing in common. It was literally just you have a name, me too, let's be friends. And we kind of figured it out from there. And then I have another group of my very dear writing friends, and we met online and then we met in person, and we are best buds. And I love it because it goes back to being authentic. Is I can be myself in there, and I can kick around ideas, and I can make mistakes, and I don't have to it's not like being on social media where I feel still, even though I make this effort to just kind of, like Meredith said, just chaos, funny dog stories, things that I enjoy tweeting about, I still am aware, okay, I'm in public and I should think about, everything very carefully, and how do I want to present myself to the public? Well, in this group, it's it's okay. And I have friends now that, I trust to stop me and say okay, well, we get where you're going with this idea, or we get where you're going with this opinion, but have you thought about it this way or that way? And I think that that's really important to have people who will look at you and understand kind of your philosophy, your writing philosophy, your creative process, and have respect for it, but then be all right, this is ridiculous. This is where you're jumping the shark. You need to calm down. Maybe write some more sticky notes, and then we'll talk about this later.
So first off, I really would like a contemporary young adult novel, Bethany, about the Bethany Writer Club, and I need it yesterday. So just, in your spare time, get going on that. Community is deeply, deeply important to me. And I think probably more so during the pandemic, even than before in a lot of ways. Even for the part of me that is introvert. I'm a kind of extrovert and introvert, so I I have both those. So I definitely have enjoyed the like silence piece, but I need community, and a huge community for me is through the Vermont College of Fine Arts. So I got my MFA in writing for children and young adults there, and that was a transformative experience in every possible way. And I rely on that group of people, and it's like a group of people that just continue. Like there are people I wasn't in school with, but because they were alums, and then we start connecting through online, and there's just an amazing group of people. So that has been really huge. And I think this was sort of in your question, although I'm having trouble remembering the question now, Lily. But I think part of the benefit of COVID, as much as we've had the Zoom fatigue, certainly, is this, right? Like the fact that I get to hang out with all you wonderfully inspiring, beautiful people and become more inspired. Like I started on my Instagram live, I started interviewing a different published author every day for NaNoWriMo for just 15 minutes of like just high-powered, highly focused craft talk. Oh my goodness, the community that came out of that, the conversations that came out of that, the way people were connecting and talking about the material, it was so fun and spontaneous. And I don't think I would have had that idea had it not been for the mess that was last year, and me just being like, I want something hopeful in this mess, and like this way to connect. And I don't think I would have thought of it. And then I did it again this year. And it was wonderful. And I think that accessibility and connection has been a real gift. But I am really thoughtful. I'm old enough and busy enough and stretched enough that I am thoughtful about who I give my energy to, right? So I do think that there has to be some self-care that goes on when you're engaging with any community, right? Because it is hard to say no to connecting, right? But I think there's, especially as a mom in a pandemic with all the kids home and all the needs, it's like, I think you just need to be sort of thoughtful about how you spend your time.
So, Tashi, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone else?
Yes, I can do that. Hi, I'm Tashi Puyan. I'm the author of Hanging Out With You, which is a YA contemporary about a girl whose family goes abroad and she ends up fake dating the bad boy of her high school while they're gone. So, yeah. Hi. Sorry about the late arrival.
No, it's all good. We're so happy that you're able to make it and that you're here and can chat with us about debuting.
Lily, your makeup looks so good.
Thank you. So I don't know if you wanted, I can just frame some of the questions that we did in the beginning in case you wanted to comment about it. We had just talked.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
To do all that.
So I thought something was interesting as well, especially since publishing has such long time periods, is since you've been debuting, or all of you have been debuting this year, right, in this current climate, what is it like being a debut and having that kind of different experience, but also working on other projects or you know, on other books that you can't talk about? Like, how do you sort of balance? For me, I wouldn't be able to balance all of these like people in my brain. So it's partly that kind of question, but also, you know, having these different stories within you that you're sort of working on and talking about publicly, and then, you know, all these different author hats, I guess, that you're putting on.
For me, the week of my debut was the same week that I had my second book final draft due. So I had to finish revising my second book, which was essentially rewriting 3/4 of the book. I think it's actually positive. That helps me, at least, because then I'm not so obsessed. I can just change my focus. and I also do a lot of work for hire. So it's really helpful to be in a completely different mindset for a week or two, and then okay, I'll go back to this draft, because the work for hire, the licensing I do, it's very strict plot, so it's just writing. There's not a lot of creation, and I think that helps, smooth over the process, so I'm not too focused on that. But I'll be honest, I have no idea what happens in my debut anymore. I have written enough of other things that sometimes someone is like, you know what, I really loved that one specific part. And I'm like, thank you. I have no idea what you're talking about, but that sounds like someone smart wrote it. What? So yeah, personally, I think that's good to work on other projects.
So my phone may die. I apparently was not fully charged before I hopped onto this, so I may make an early exit, whereas Tashi came in late. So I two things, right? Like, so there's always that mentality of work on something new, let go of your art. It very much helps to have multiple eggs in multiple baskets as opposed to just one that you're sitting on the entire time. But I will say that I hit like September, maybe late August, and I like to call it toxic productivity of like, oh my God, nothing is, I think just about nothing is selling the way that it did before the pandemic. And most publishers have not figured out quite why that is. Established authors can still move volumes and volumes of books, but they're having a really hard time. Even when they do put a lot of money into debuts, they're having a lot of time getting new audiences to invest in them. So I hit like an interesting productive panic where I think I came up with, I want to say 3 different proposals. So it's been super busy. I don't recommend it, but it's been interesting.
Yeah, I think it's so weird having to write on like deadline now, because like before your debut, you get to just like write and then it sells. So it's like you don't really have like a specific timeline or structure. But now it's like you do have a specific timeline and you have to get the book in by a certain date. And it's like you're drafting it for the first time. And so like that's been like interesting to figure out, I guess. But I am happy that like we had a lot of time this year and last year because of COVID to like be at home and have a little more time. One of the few things to be grateful for, like to kind of work on ourselves and like work on what we're working on. So like I think that helps, but it'll be interesting in the years to come, like figuring out like how to make time and figure out like how to keep going and keep like writing on a schedule and figuring out the timelines. And like it's so weird that like with publishing, like you could have like 17 ideas, but like it would take like 17 years to get them all out. Like it's just so much to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with everyone else and feel that kind of fumbling around, like I said earlier. But for me, I think that one of the biggest things that came out of debuting, so Gabby, like you, I turned in the edits on my second book the same day that I launched my debut. And at the same time, there was an ice storm that hit the whole South, and no one got my book. So I was just in a complete meltdown at this point. And then I realized, like, did it matter that much? No. So kind of what I took away from that whole experience is now when I'm working, because I'm a chaos pantser, I don't outline one single thing. I don't even write in chronological order. It is just totally out there. Is if I don't love it from the time that I start, it's not the right idea. Just drop it, go to something else, because being so immersed in one project for so long, the events, the marketing, the whatever, if I didn't love it and I was just like, here's something, and I got somebody to publish it, and then I had to like be out there trying to champion this thing, and I don't even like it that much. It was just like something I put together. That would feel awful to me. I don't know that I can make it through after, like, with so many other stressors in my life. So that was a really enlightening experience for me too. It's like all those little ideas that I was like, I'm a little on the fence here, but maybe I can make it work. Nope. Next one.
There we go. The unmuting problem again. So, I think I'm going to be actually a different voice here. So for me, the bulk of my edits, because of when I sold, the bulk of my edits were during the pandemic. And because I'm a mom, both my kids were home from March 2020 through September 2021. My husband works from home. So all four of us were in the same house, which I used to think was a reasonable sized house. And it is not, apparently, it turns out. And, parenting in a pandemic, it's like, it is an intense event. And it's all consuming. So I haven't had the same kind of, unlike Tashi, who I mean, this has been like such a strange time, I think, because I think people have had like a wealth of a thing that they didn't have before. So I have had a wealth of connection with my family, let's put it that way. And I have had much less time. And so a lot of my work has been on being patient, on showing myself grace, on reminding myself of what my priorities are, of comforting myself that meeting some idealistic one book a year thing is just not where I'm at right now. And that's okay, because my kids are more important. And I think one of the things that's actually really helped me is to look at things in seasons almost, right? Like I feel like this event today is the last of my kind of events that I've been doing. And so my marketing season is ending in, however many minutes we have left. And I am hibernating, and I am going into a writing season with the time that I'm not momming, right? And so that feels like I can wrap my head around that, right? Like I was not able to market and write in quite the same, it just didn't work with the pandemic and parenting and all the other things. So yeah, so it's slightly different, but I think it's taught me a lot about being grace, giving myself grace.
So we have one audience question so far, and they wanted to know, how do you choose character names?
At random. Sorry, my answer is not very smart. For Like a Love Song, I needed a Brazilian name that was difficult for English speakers to pronounce. So that's why I went with Natalia, because her nickname is Nachi. But other than that, I'll let Meredith speak now.
Let's see. So Jasmine was actually IP. So Jasmine was already chosen for me, as was Eugene and Paul and some of the other names. For Kelsey, and usually for main characters, their names just come to you. And it's very hard if you ever have to change them for some weird reason, because you're like, but their name is Taylor. But so yeah, I guess they sound like a Kelsey. They sound like an Eric, like in this weird point in your writer brain, you're like, no, that's who they sound like. And it's probably from your experiences with meeting people with a similar name.
I have to make a parenthesis on that, about what you said about changing names. So the manuscript I'm working on right now, it's about very bad people. And one of my main characters was named Theo. And I thought that the name was perfect for him. And then I had a brother. And my family was like, what name is perfect for this beautiful round baby? Theo. So I had to change the name, and I was very upset about that. I look at my brother and I'm like, how could they give you a murderer name?
For Hanging Out With You, I chose Karina because that's the name of my Build-A-Bear. So I think I have rights for that. But in general, I feel like I'm usually just on like babynames.com, like looking up like names, looking up like meanings, like stuff like that. Like sometimes they don't even have a meaning. I'm just like, this sounds nice. But like most of the time I feel like for like my main characters at least, like I just go through like baby names and like trying to find like a name that I like. But I'm kind of worried because I'm like, if I ever have kids, like what if I run out of names? You know, like what if I've already looked through all the names that I like and now I'm like, well, I can't, I like what, like, you know, so that worries me a little bit, but that's okay.
I also use baby books, which makes me laugh because every once in a while I'll watch a TV show or I'll read a book and we've got an overlap of like 80%. And I'm like, we definitely use the same name website, like, because it's like, boom, boom, this name, this name, this name. The only name that I will say like that I chose more deliberately, I guess, is so in Prepped, my love interest, Roy, he's Korean and I wanted him to have a quote unquote American sounding name because being adopted and having my maiden name was Johnson. And there were so many times where I would literally be sitting in a waiting room. And finally, after like an hour, somebody would come over and they go, "Oh, I'm sorry, who are you here to see?" And I'm like, I'm here to see whoever. And they go, "Oh, are you Bethany Johnson?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Were you waiting for Mulan?" Because, so I feel like there was always this like weird, "Oh, your face doesn't match your name." And I was like, okay, so what does a Bethany look like? And that's what makes me laugh a little bit about having a writer group full of Bethanies because we all look very different. So that was something that was really important to me, was to have a Korean character like me who just has just a name, that they are not super defined by their like heritage and their culture, that it's an element, it's just one facet of your life. And that was something that was very deliberate for me. But otherwise, it's just like, oh, that's pretty, type.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody else said. The only thing I would add that I do is I cannot stand it. For the there are a few rare exceptions where I think it's kind of the point, but for the most part, I try to make the beginning sound of the name different from any other character in the book, because I get confused. Like if there's like 5 people with T names, I'm like, what? Like I can't. So I make myself an alphabet like A through Z. And I will write out who the characters are in the alphabet and look at where my gaps are. And so I'm like, okay, I have no R names. Like I'm allowed to have an R name, or I've got 3 T names. So I should change something,
Which is amazing because then in real life, like 18 Bethanies and everything's fine and you keep them totally separate. So,
I know. Yeah. And meanwhile, I told Bethany to write a book with 18 Bethanies just for the pet peeve of like hating all the same character names. But that's different. That feels different.
Well, we have little nicknames because in a Bethany group with this many Bethanies, you can't just be like, "Hey, Bethany." You have to be like, so we'll call each other by like little icon names or last names or something, because otherwise, you're just doomed.
Sophia Sauter. Yes, same. Sophia Sauter is a Brazilian author, but so she writes in Portuguese, but I feel like I need to say that she has a book, a sapphic book about 2 Isadoras who fall in love with each other, and they have the same name, and they hate each other because they have the same name. So it's like they're constantly competing with each other. And I love that premise about same names, the stories about people with the same name.
I feel like there are some exceptions, right? But I feel like if you're just, if that's not the point of the story, then why are you doing that to mess with your poor reader head, right? Because I feel like, Meredith, part of why it's okay in real life is we have other senses happening, right? Like when it's just on the page, it feels slightly different.
I love what you said, Bethany, about also being adopted and then having your, like, the perception of your name versus like a perception of your face. That happened to me. I was I'm also adopted. I was getting my passport renewed, and I have a Chinese middle name, like, because my parents decided to like keep, I guess, that part of my sort of original name, I guess. and they somehow, when they were like calling my name out to come pick up my passport, had done something really just quite awful, and like the pronunciation was so bad. I'd never heard it so bad, and they also like put my middle name first and then my like first name and then my last name, and I was just like, I don't even know. I'm just gonna go up to any name and just ask if it's me at this point. One question that I also had, which I thought would also be a nice question to end on, as we've talked about how difficult some things have been in the last year, is to talk about some of the, sort of the nicest, positive, most proudest achievements or even reader interactions, like any sort of really positive, nice, perhaps even surprising experience from the debut process and debut journey with your books.
Someone, a Brazilian who immigrated to the United States, just like my main character, she made a reading vlog where she tagged me. Now, usually I ignore everything that I'm tagged on, but because she was Brazilian, I was like, no, let me just do that. Let me just do this link. And it was 20 minutes of her just being amazing and relating to my book, I guess, in very surprising ways. And I showed that video to my mom, and I think that was the coolest thing that happened to me that I wasn't even expecting.
So the reviews have been so nice and so like you're kind of working in a little vacuum. Like you think that you wrote a good book because like you're a writer, and it's very rare that you're like, oh, here's this POS. So like other than our first draft. But it's so nice to like do that thing you're not supposed to do, where you creep on your title and then you see these like super, super nice posts. And I got fan art from somebody, and I was super excited about that and really happy because it was like one of my not in my control, but like it would be a nice bucket list.
I think her battery ended.
Yeah, it sounded like that.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was only my internet or my headphones, why it started sounding a little metallic.
Yeah. Should I go then? Okay. I was at a Harry Styles concert, and I was just like sitting there minding my business, and then someone goes, Tashi! And I was like, what? And like there was this girl like on the floor, like because I was in a seated area, but she was on the floor. She was like, oh my god, I love your book. And I was like, thank you. But it was so wholesome and random. Like I wasn't expecting it. Like I had posted a picture of like where I was sitting, like with my friends or whatever. So I guess like she like went around trying to see where I was. And then she was like, oh my god, like I loved your book, like blah blah. And it was so funny though, because everyone else in the row was like, who's that? Like, who's she? Why are they yelling? Like, and I was like, but it was very wholesome. So that was a good experience.
I think like my favorite experience is, so I wanted to be a writer forever. And we joke that there must be something magic about going back to visit my parents in New Jersey, since I always seem to get good news there. But I knew that Prepped was going to acquisitions, but we didn't know what time. And I am sitting on the couch across from my dad's reading chair, because, you know, that's where I got, like, I guess, a love of reading from. So my dad's in his chair and he's reading, and my agent calls, and I answer the phone, and she just screamed. Like, she didn't say anything, just screamed so loud. I had to like put the phone out here. My dad like had to peel his eyebrows off the ceiling and paste them back on his face, because he's just across the room and just hears this blood curdling scream from my phone. And he's like trying to figure out all the details, and I'm in my kitchen and I've got Kelly Clarkson's A Moment Like This playing on my phone at top volume. I'm just crying and like running around my dad's house just screaming. And he's like trying to celebrate with me, but I was so like So he took me to ShopRite and bought me an ice cream cake, and then I just kind of like cried at the table and ate it, and it was just like very weird, but also wholesome because if you know my dad, he's not like the most emotional person ever, but he's just like trying to get me my cake and cut it for me and stuff, and that was very like, look, Daddy, I did it, and then my mom. Who also is, trying to figure out what's going on at the same time. She also just didn't know how to react. So, he was just kind of standing there in the tornado of the two of us, just like back and forth the whole time.
Oh
Wait,
my
did
gosh, I love these stories so much.
Wait, did you know that it was going to be, was a moment like this just randomly playing, or was this a conscious choice?
Is this the part where I confess something really cheesy on the internet? So I remember watching American Idol when I was a kid and seeing Kelly Clarkson win and thinking like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if I could get to do my dream? And that's always been like the anthem of getting to do what you love, and watching her like at the season finale, like crying. And whenever I felt like I'm never going to make it, I would watch the Kelly Clarkson video. So it was just like the first thing I wanted to put on. And I must have played it like 100 times over the next couple of days. But yeah, that's my cheesy, you found out you sold a book story.
Me too, but with Successful by Ariana Grande. And I said that to my editor. The first email that we had official, I was like, just so you know, Successful by Ariana Grande is playing, blasting through my house 24/7. So I totally get it.
So I love these stories so much. So so I think the nice thing about taking forever to sell your book is that like your family and friends are like, well, thank goodness, right? Like finally. So they all like show up in like a massive way. My parents were I had friends, my best friend from Syracuse drove 3 hours to come to this outdoor signing I had for like 10 minutes. Like, I mean, just super sweet things. My kids, so on their birthdays, every time they have a birthday, I say that like that could happen more than once a year. I don't know why I said it like that. Like on their birthdays, I fill the hallways with the hallway outside their room with balloons and then streamers from their door. So I woke up on my book birthday and they had book streamers that they had made, and the like hallway was serious. Like I cheat a little bit with my balloon filling. Like I get a little bored halfway through and I'm like, yeah, this is fine. This is enough balloons. They went nuts with the balloons.
Please tell me there's a picture of this somewhere, because that sounds adorable.
I did. I put it on Instagram. I put it on TikTok. Yeah, it was real. It was special. Like I just felt like people really got the weight of it, again, probably because it had taken me so long. And then just the teen readers, right? Like, isn't that the best part? Like when you get these like messages from like there was this one Instagram post with this girl was on a subway and there were tears on her cheeks and she was listening to the audiobook and she was like, I'm stopping because I can't bear for it to finish. It was just so sweet, right? Like these just very heartfelt, like I'm pleased that this exists in the world moments, right? It was special.
Yeah, I have so much serotonin now from this one question. I didn't think of any other serotonin filled questions, but now I want to, because I don't want to like go back to a really sad one. So I'll have to think on the spot of something. I thought that was, yeah, does anyone else have any I love Bethany's like acquisition story thing. Does anyone else want to share their musical choices?
I want to share the story from my agent, for the signing with my agent, because my call wasn't that exciting. I was actually at the bank solving something for my grandma, and then I saw that my agent had emailed me being like, I need to call you. This is good news. And I was just like, to the manager of the bank to, speed up the process. So it wasn't that exciting, but my agent, so the agent I signed with, she wasn't the first to offer. She was the third, actually. And, I really liked the first one, but I was telling my mom everything, right? And my mom had cancer at the time. We were leaving the chemotherapy. We were going to a wig shop for the first time. So she was like very nervous. And then I got an email from my current agent being like, I would love to, offer to you, like, when can we have a conversation? And then I read that to my mom and she was like, tell me more. And I went to the literary agency's website and read her along some stuff. And she was like, that's your agent. And I was like, hold on, Mom. Like, I haven't even talked to her. Maybe we won't get along. And she was like, no, you don't understand. I have mom superpowers. So I know she's your agent. Congratulations. So it was really funny because the first 5 minutes that I was on the phone with my agent, I was like, okay, it can't be anyone else. Like, we are perfect. She's perfect for me, for what I want in an agent. And my mom instinctively, like, she just knew from, that moment in the car, in the parking lot. So that was very, very nice.
My acquisitions, I remember I was outside having lunch, I think. It was like Italian food with my friend who's also a writer friend. And I felt so bad when I got the call because I was like, because she hadn't gotten her book deal sold yet, but she has now, so it's okay. But at the time she hadn't. So I was like, and she'd been on sub longer than I had. So I was like, do I take this call? Like, do I not take this call? Like, what do I do? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take it. But then it was so like, I felt so bad because my agent was like talking to me, but it was like 30 minutes. So like, we were sitting in the Italian store. I had my phone to I was like talking to her and like my friend was just sitting there and I was like, oh my God, I'm the worst person alive. But it was okay. She was very supportive and very sweet about it. So it wasn't like a thing, but I just felt bad because I was like, no! Like, this is the worst timing ever.
I guess I already told my acquisition story, but I guess I have one more like funny related one. So my brother is sort of the odd one out in our family because my dad loves to read and was always like, let's go to the library, let's do this. My mom loves to read and we'll swap books here and there. And my brother it's not his thing. He's always loved music and, playing instruments and things like that, but it's just, that's not his like creative outlet. But he made me a promise and he knows how hard it is to get published. So he made me a deal that if I get a book published, he would read it. So in the acknowledgments, it says something like, Andrew, now you have to read a book. And I was torturing him for the whole run up to the book launch of like, it's a pretty thick book, Andrew. There's a lot of pages. That's a lot of words you're going to have to read. It's going to take a long time, lots of brain power, English, and just kind of making fun of him with it. He did not renew the deal, but I consider it to be a standing one that he's going to have to read the one that comes out next year too.
That literally is the same thing with my brother. He was like, I was like, are you going to read it? And he was like, am I going to read it? And I was like, I mean, you're going to read it, right? And he was like, is there like an audiobook or something? Like, can I play it in my car and like listen to it when I like drive to work or something? And I was like, yeah, there is. And he was like, wait, I was joking. Like he was like, wait, take it back. Like, what do you mean there is? I was like, oh yeah, it exists. And he was like, I'll get my friends to read it. And I was like, okay, thanks, I guess. At least it sales. But like, I feel that like my brother does not want to read. Like he is like, it's a no for me, which is why he's not in my acknowledgments.
See, I feel like I have to verify too. Like, you need to write me a 2-page book report, double spaced. Like,
there are a lot of people who, in fact, that was something that I expected because I'd heard authors say that all the time, right? That they had family members and friends who, like, surprisingly just don't buy it or don't read it, or like people that you consider to be close friends or family members who aren't. So actually that was one of my happy surprises was I think, again, because it took me so darn long But like that was something I totally expected, was that there would be lots of people who wouldn't read it, because that's a pretty normal thing. So for my, it's hard to choose, right? Like, because people have been doing agents and acquisitions. So my story was actually, my editor had already gone to acquisitions before she ever called us. So I didn't know where, I thought we were lower down than we were. So we have this, like, we get this email like, okay, this is coming. And I have this phone call with my agent beforehand. She's like prepping me, and we have this conversation. And then during the conversation, we say something about taking it to acquisitions. And she's like, oh no, that's already done. Like and I was like, and then after we get off the phone call, my agent calls me, literally, like, I hang up and my agent calls me right away, and she just starts screaming. And then I was screaming, and then the two of us were just screaming. I'm going to say for like 30 minutes, we were just screaming at each other. Like, I don't think there were words. I think it was just screams. And my family was confused. And it was, yeah, that was fun. A lot of screaming.
Wait, I think you were muted, Gabby.
Oh, I just said I love that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what you said, but I just saw your mouth moving.
Thinking out loud, like reacting with my thoughts. I just love the screaming. Any story that involves positive screaming, I'm here for. So yes.
I dropped the giveaway link a bit ago. I can't remember when. But I forgot to say something. So it is there. For everybody. I'm pointing at it, but no one can see it. But it is there. And so definitely make sure that everyone enters. And yeah, I had such a fun time for this panel, internally positively screaming. And I hopefully, if I had been doing my job, that I have everyone's bookshop links in the description for the video. I really hope. I've been saying this in every panel, like, oh, I put the links in, but actually I have not gone to check if I have. So I hope I did, because that would make sense. But anyway, everyone should check out and buy the books and leave reviews for the books after they finish them. All of these amazing books, and also Meredith's book. The Meredith left, but also Meredith's book. And yeah, thank you so much for everyone who came, and also everyone here who spoke with us all today. I didn't know if anyone had any final words, but those are my final words.
I just want to say thank you, Lily, for bringing us together. This was a real treat. This was so nice, because the 20 Wonders, we're all together. It's nice.
Yeah, thank you, Lily.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, in the last month of the year. Okay, so have a great day, everyone, and I hope to see you all in 2022. Bye, everybody.